Shy Guy in Love, SCP-096. An SCP Tale by John Hudson. Based on the original concept by Dr. Dan. Licensed under CC by SA. Part 1 Pareidolia. Richie could feel the beads of sweat gliding down his forehead, cheeks, and chin as he gripped for dear life onto the oh-shit handle of the passenger side seat. He'd experienced high-speed chases before but could swear this was the fastest he'd ever been moving in a vehicle. His brother, Sam, seemed fully cognizant and in control as he zigzagged the car through the multicolored blur of other vehicles on the freeway. "Richie," Sam yelled, grabbing the sleeve of Richie's jacket but not taking his focus off of the road. "Can you please do something to shut that kid up?" Richie unbuckled his seatbelt and turned toward the back seat of the stolen Ford Mustang, upon which resided a young black girl who was writhing and screaming at the top of her lungs, kicking her feet at the front seat Sam sat in while flailing her arms in every direction. It was a wonder the dark sunglasses she wore hadn't yet gone flying off her face. Richie reached back to try and grab her wrists and, in the process, fell down into the recess behind Sam's seat, causing the Mustang to swerve as Richie's foot whacked against Sam's face. "God damn it, Richie," Sam berated as he regained control of the car. Richie continued to try and subdue the little girl, even from his awkward position. At the very least, his body now acted as a barrier between her kicking and the driver's seat. "Kid, hey Kiao. Stop it." Richie adjusted himself onto his knees, his chest pressing against her feet as she continued to slap and flail. In panic desperation, Richie landed a solid jab square onto the poor little girl's nose. The punch stunned her into silence for a moment as her now shattered sunglasses fell half off of her face. "Don't cry, little girl. Don't cry, little girl. Don't cry, little girl," she repeated in a hushed tone peppered with sobs, snot, and blood, falling into a sort of meditative trance as her gaze drifted upwards to the top of the car's interior. Her fingers made subtle movements, as if rigid and typing, despite Richie still holding her wrists. "Sorry about that, kid, but we need you too." Richie's words trailed off as he noticed her eyes behind the dark sunglasses still half hanging off of her face. He let her wrists go and turned to climb back into the passenger seat up front. "How many squad cars are tailing us?" Sam asked. "I counted 6, but they're falling back for some reason," Richie replied. "Falling back? Yeah, there." Richie turned to look out the rear window. He sat back into his seat, perplexed, but then rolled down the passenger window and looked out into the sky. "What?" Sam barked. "Richie, they're what? Gone?" Richie rolled the window back up. "Nobody's chasing us?" The Mustang came to an abrupt, screeching halt. Sam had slammed on the brakes and the vehicle skidded onto the shoulder of the third lane of the highway. He'd done this not because of any obstacle in the road but rather because there were none. The other cars, including the multiple cruisers that had been chasing them for so long, were all gone. Even the police helicopter above had seemingly vanished. They must be building a blockade. Maybe throwing out tire strips or something? Sam speculated out loud, still looking up through the top of the windshield in an attempt to spot the helicopter. Why'd they call off the helicopter, though? Richie asked. Sam struggled to find and offer a reply, but before he could he noticed there was a small clearing in the dense forest through which the highway ran, just down the road. Putting the car back into drive, the tires squealed and threw gravel as he drove towards it. He took the car as deep into the bluff as it'd go, about 1.5 miles into woodland. They parked when they could go no further and Sam and Richie exited the vehicle, leaving the little girl in the backseat. "Okay. Here's what we do," said Sam after spending 15 seconds rubbing his fingers on his temples. "If we keep going down the highway, there's most likely a blockade waiting for us. I say we grab the cash out the trunk and we go into these woods. They're thick, they're deep, and we can camp out here for a few days until the heat dies down. Then we can find a town and get a couple bus tickets down to Mexico. The kid. We gag, tie, and leave in the trunk of the car." Sam," Richie spoke up, interrupting Sam's train of thought. "We're actually good on the kid. I don't think she's going to be a problem." Sam's eyes expressed his confusion as Richie opened the passenger side door, then pushed the seat forward. "Look." It took Sam a moment to process what Richie meant as he looked the little girl up and down. Her hands were pushed up together against her chest. With her mumbled chanting, she would almost look like she were praying, if not for her tiny fingers typing away at the air, as if swatting at each other, and if not for the one eye revealed by the thick, dark sunglasses with the milky, white pupil it bore. Sam began to chuckle to himself. "She's blind and retarded," Sam muttered, chuckling under his breath. "She's blind and retarded," Richie echoed, matter-of-factly. "That's what I'm saying." "Well, Hallelujah, Richie. Sam made a jubilant slap onto the roof of the car, causing the little girl to flinch, startled. Okay, one less step, Sam continued. We ditch the kid here. Just leave her locked in the car. We go. Leave her with the car? Yes. We leave her with the car. We can't leave her with the car, Richie said. Sam's smile disappeared and his fingers returned to his temples. Why can't we leave her with the car, Richie? She'll die. It's like 100 degrees out here. Sam closed his eyes, his fingers now pinching the bridge of his nose. So what? You want me to crack the window? How the fuck is that our problem? Richie? I'm just saying, Richie reasoned, we do like you say, but when we hit that town, we just, leave her at the bus station or something? They're going to be looking for this kid, Richie, Sam said. And you want to waltz her into town? I don't know. Just let's leave her somewhere that they'll find her. If this does go south, do we really want a negligible homicide against a minor? That's all I'm saying. She's a liability. She's just a kid. Then maybe next time you boost us a getaway car on a heist, you make sure there's not an adolescent, screaming, idiot savant in the backseat? Maybe? Richie looked sheepishly at his feet as Sam turned and walked 2 paces away, his hands on his hips and looking to the sky as he contemplated the situation. Sam let out a deep sigh, taking a kick at the dirt in front of him as he conceded to the one hiccup in their plans. He walked back over to Richie, firmly placing his left hand at the back of Richie's neck to push their foreheads together. He spoke in a calmer, quiet tone to diffuse the tension. Even growing up, back in Jersey, Dad used to say you were the sweet one of the family. You remember that? The 2 brothers smirked. Look, we do it your way, but we leave her in the woods at the edge of the town. Someone'll find her, I promise. Richie nodded in agreement and opened the passenger door to retrieve the little girl. The static distorted chatter and passive noise cancellation in the aviation headsets did nothing to drown out the constant vibration and hum of the 2 massive Lycoming T-55 turboshaft engines spurring the rotors above the blacked-out CH-47 as it rapidly ferried its contents towards an isolated stretch of highway deep in the heart of the Virginian countryside. 3 men sat on each side of the aircraft, some busying themselves with their gear, others simply catching up on sleep, while a man and a woman stood at the far end of its hull and peered over the 2 pilots' shoulders. 1 hour to drop, Chief, said the pilot into all 10 headsets. All right, roger that, replied Gunner with a deep southern drawl in his voice. He turned to the woman he'd been standing next to and motioned on his headset for her to switch to a private comms channel. So, Dr. Daniels, tell me, who's the green Jill, stiff plank of wood over there? He motioned toward one of the men sitting in the back left of the Chinook, closest to the bay door. Dr. Daniels responded, that's your new guy. Jones's replacement. You'll like him. He's former U.S. Special Forces. Daniels, all of my guys are former Spec Ops, one country or another. What's his Foundation background? Dr. Daniels remained silent, unable to fashion a good enough selling point to pass off the bill of goods sitting in the back of the bay. Shit, Gunner said under his breath, lightly banging his forehead against the hull. Has he at least been briefed? He was off the bus at Site 19 on Monday. He filled out his papers yesterday and was introduced to anomalies shortly after. Gunner waved his hands to hush Dr. Daniels like a referee waving a flag on the play. So this guy has known about anomalies for all of maybe 24 hours and the council wants to send him after the big guy? It was the director's call, said Daniels. She went to embellish and say more, but she held her tongue before any words came out. Yeah, I'm sure the director had his motives, Gunner snarked, spitting a wad of chewing tobacco onto the floor. All right, let's get the brief started and see if our new boy can swim in the deep end. He and Daniel switched their headsets back to the communal channel as they turned to face the other 6. Mobile Task Force Paradolia, heads up. Everyone turned to face Gunner. I know some of you were expecting a leave of duty this weekend, but unfortunately our old friend 096 breached containment 4 days ago. We can assume why, but we don't know how. Right now it's stationary in a secluded patch of forest in Western Virginia, so we assume that whoever it was after is dead. Now before we get too far into brief, I'd like to point out that we have a newcomer to the unit. State your name, son. Gunner motioned at the man in the back. James Amore, sir. Former U.S. Air Force of Spessword, the young recruit replied. James, don't call me sir. I work for a living. These men call me chief, you might as well, too. I know you haven't been briefed on 096, but please save any questions you have until then I'll fill you in one-on-one. Yo, chief, one agent exclaimed. He doesn't even know what this thing is or does? He's gonna get us killed. Simmer down, Hex. I'll decide how I run my unit. The agent, Hex, shot a disgusted glance back at Amore, but otherwise knew to keep his mouth shut. Don't worry about Hex, said the agent next to Amore, shooting him a boyish grin as he extended his hand. He's a big teddy bear once you know him. Man, shut up, Martinez, scolded Hex from across the hall. It had no adverse effect on Martinez's boyish smile. Amore, right? I'm Adam Martinez. Everyone just calls me Martinez. James Amore, said Amore, returning his handshake. Boys, came a thick Russian accent from next to Hex. Can we let Chief get brief? You're right, Natasha, said Martinez. Sorry, Chief. Anyway, Gunner continued, priority, as always, is bag and tag. Our insertion point is a small clearing, about 9 kilometers from 096's last ping and about 2.4 kilometers from the highway, where we have a mobile command tent set up. Mobile containment transport is there, as well, making it our extraction point. Foundation plants within the state government have shut down the highway and evacuated a nearby town just outside the perimeter under the guise of pursuing 2 fugitives. Gunner passed a stack of papers to Hex, who took one and passed the stack on. The piece of paper contained the mug shots and descriptions of 2 men. Intelligence suggests that there are 2 hostile non-player civilians in the area, as well as 1 friendly. The 2 hostiles are the fugitives I mentioned, Samuel and Richard Burton. Career criminals. Led police on a high-speed chase and escaped directly into the perimeter before Foundation agents could mark the area off. Last known whereabouts are the clearing we're using for the insertion point. That's where their getaway car was found. While they're considered armed and dangerous, I would also consider them already dead given their assumed proximity to 096. The friendly, whose name has been redacted, is a disabled 10-year-old girl of African American descent. She was last seen in the backseat of the car used by the Burton brothers, when they carjacked the vehicle while her mother was inside a nearby pharmacy. She's blind from birth and, unless harmed by the brothers, most likely alive. You're assuming the anomaly killed the armed, hardened criminals, but that a disabled 10-year-old is alive? Amore buzzed in over the intercom. Hex shook his head. Yes, Amore. I also assume you understood me when I said to save your questions for the end. Amore blushed as Hex and Natasha fought to cover their grins, but Gunner ignored them and finished up with, that's all I have for you. You all know the drill and what to do. I'm giving the comms over to Dr. Daniela Daniels to brief you on your field gear. A jubilant exclamation of approval and applause erupted over the intercom as Dr. Daniels stepped forward. Yeah, Double D, Hex exclaimed before bellowing a cartoonish, howling cat call. Dr. Daniels blushed. Hi, Hex, she said with a look of annoyed contempt. Good to see you, Dr. Dan, said Martinez with an emphatic smile and wave. You too, Martinez, Dr. Daniels said, waving back. Amore noticed 2 of the men had been very quiet through the whole briefing and wondered if they were new to the unit, like himself. For this mission, Dr. Daniels began, we're sending you into the field with some pretty standard issue gear. You're all equipped with modified P-80 automatics and a Beretta M9A 39mm sidearm. Friendly reminder, she said while looking directly at Amore, these weapons aren't very effective against 096. However, we have intelligence to suggest that the insurgency is aware of, and may have even been involved in, the breach of containment by 096. These weapons are largely just a precaution in case of contact. The good news is we were able to deliver some false flag intel to the insurgency and they should be about 160 kilometers northwest of the perimeter. So, again, just a precaution. No unnecessary rounds fired, Gunner interjected. Your other equipment, Dr. Daniels continued, pulling out what looked to Amore like a night vision lens attachment, is an upgraded sonic sonar heads-up display. It won't be the best vision, but it'll at least render your surroundings without rendering 096. Just be advised that if you're less than a foot from 096, you should refrain from looking at its face even with your SSHUD deployed. Not to keep interrupting you, Doctor, but I just want to make it clear, from the moment you leave this helicopter, your SSHUD stays on at all times until we bag the son of a bitch. Lastly, said Dr. Daniels, we have your ultra black, 30 hook weave Kevlar containment masks for securing 096. Any questions? Just one, Dr. Daniels, said Hex. When you gonna let me take you out on the town? Dr. Daniels leaned down closer to Hex's face. Never, she said calmly and with a gentle smile. This caused Martinez and Natasha a good bit of amusement. Get yourselves ready, Gunner interjected, immune to the merriment at Hex's expense. 40 minutes to drop.
Hey guys, John Hudson here with Forgotten Tales of the SCP Foundation. Thank you so much for making it to the end of my first video. Many more uploads coming, many more stories coming. I'm happy to tell these tales. I like writing, I like doing video production, I like doing graphic design. Thank you so much. Please remember to hit that subscribe button. It's what allows me to keep bringing you more stories. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Love y'all. Be blessed.